programme at the Institute for Animal Health, and he's in our studio in Caversham. A very good evening to you. Thank you very much for your time. We understand that this disease originated in the Netherlands and Germany. As far as you know, have any of the affected farms in England imported animals from those countries?
I think the tracing data that we have suggests that the cases we've seen in the UK were not caused by importation. We actually think that infected insects blew across from the mainland, from Europe, to the UK.
And of course the worrying thing is that we're far from the peak of the lambing season, so the true extent of the disease, well, we just don't know yet.
Well, and the issue is not just with lambs, it's also with calves, with cattle, which of course, because they have a longer pregnancy, will be producing later in the year. So if they were infected, we could see the numbers rising very significantly.
But so far the disease concentrated, it seems, in sheep.
The cases we have seen so far are in sheep, but I don't think that should lull us into a false sense of security. That is simply because the lambing season comes first, before the calving season.
And as this disease is new, presumably it's pretty difficult to predict exactly how it will spread.
There are models for it, although you're right, this is a new disease, but there are other related viruses like Akabane virus and Shimoda virus in Japan that we believe will represent pretty good models for the way this virus is transmitted and the outcome of the outbreak.
In the interest of gathering as much knowledge as possible about this new disease, how important is it that farmers report any suspicions or actual cases of it? Because we've heard from the National Farmers Union that in some cases they say there's been significant under-reporting of it.
Well, I think that is essential if we're going to get a good picture of what is going on, and we need that picture in order to predict the risk and to see what is going to happen later this year. I mean, in essence, what we're seeing now, the calves and the lambs that are born now deformed, are really last year's story, because these effects were caused by an infection that spread probably late summer last year, and it's what will happen later this year that is perhaps far more important in the UK.
And has there been any sign of animal-to-animal transmission of this disease?
Well, the major route of infection, we believe, is via biting insects, by Culicoides biting midge.
Yes, of course, but within, say, flocks of sheep, for example.
Well, this is one of the unknowns, and we're doing some work. We're putting the virus, at the Institute for Animal Health at Purbright, we're putting the virus into insects from our colonies of Culicoides midges and mosquitoes to see how well it will infect the insects and how well they could transmit it. And this is really essential to give us some information on the efficiency of transmission and the speed of transmission, and that in turn will tell us what is likely to have happened last year in the UK. We can't rule out animal-to-animal spread, but right now, I stress, we don't have enough information.
So, can you say at this point then how concerned the public should be?
I think in terms of health risk to humans, all of the evidence is that this is very, very unlikely to have that sort of effect. The risk is really in livestock. It's not even causing a dramatic effect in adults, adult cows or sheep. The effect is almost entirely, as far as we can tell, the significant effect is the fact that it's crossing the placenta and infecting the unborn calf or lamb, and is causing deformities, in many cases sufficiently severe that the individual lamb or calf would not survive.
Given everything you've said, Professor, about the need to gather more information on this, presumably
Professor,
we're quite a way off from any sort of vaccination programme that could deal with it.
Well, I've been speaking to the vaccine manufacturers that were involved in generating the blue-tongue virus vaccine. If you remember, we had a blue-tongue outbreak in 2007-2008 in the UK that spread from the continent in more or less the same way. And we spoke to the vaccine manufacturers, and they are working very hard on generating a vaccine. The problem is to go through all of the regulations and appropriate procedures for getting a vaccine like that to the market would normally take a couple of years. But there are shortcuts which wouldn't, with safety of the vaccine, but would allow a vaccine maybe to come to the market in perhaps 6 months without rigorously checking that it achieved all of the efficacy milestones that perhaps would be normally needed. So there are ways of getting a vaccine to the market quite quickly.
Okay, Professor Peter Mertens, thank you very much indeed for your insight. Thank you, Professor Peter Mertens from the Institute for Animal Health. Now, the US Secretary